Hi, puffins and penguins. Mr. Walker here again. I'm going to read you chapter 3 of Firework-Maker's Daughter. The last chapter we read, chapter 2, Lila, our main character, is on her way to try and find the secrets to be a firework maker. And Shulak, one of her friends, is off to chase her because she doesn't really know what she's getting herself into. She's just met the pirates who are on this little boat going across the water trying to charge her money. They've just revealed to her that they're actually pirates, but they're a little bit strange, a bit funny. They don't seem like very scary pirates to me. So, we'll crack on. Chapter 3. Rambashi and his pirates managed to get the murderer to the other bank of the river. The murderer is the ship, if you remember. But Lila had to fish another oar out of the water when one of them dropped it and promised to sit still and not joggle the boat. When they hit the bank, everyone fell off their seats. "All right," said Rambashi, picking himself up. "Tie the boat to a good bit of tree or something and take the prisoner ashore." "Are we going to eat her?" asked one of the pirates. "'Cause I'm hungry." "Yeah, we've had nothing to eat for days," grumbled another. "You promised we'd have a hot meal every evening." "That's enough of that," said Rambashi. "You're a pack of scurvy dogs. Take the prisoner up to the cave and stop complaining." Lila wasn't sure if she could run away just yet. Some of those pirates did look fierce enough to run after her, though now she looked more closely. She saw their daggers were made of wood wrapped in silver paper, so they wouldn't be able to do her much damage. "I hope you don't mind this little transaction," Rambashi said as they walked along the jungle trail. "It's purely business." "Have you kidnapped me then?" asked Lila. "I'm afraid so. You're going to have to hand over all your money in a minute, and then we'll tie you up and hold you to ransom." "Have you done it before?" "Oh, yes," he said, "lots of times." "What happens when you don't get the money?" "Well, we eat you," said the hungry pirate. "Shh," said Rambashi, waving his hand vaguely. "You're not cannibals," said Lila. "We're bloomin' hungry," said the pirate. "Have you always been pirates?" "No," said Rambashi. "I used to keep hens, but they all died of melancholy, which means they're really sad. So I sold the business and bought the boat." "Oh no, shh, stop, don't move." The last pirates in the line, still grumbling, bumped into those in front, who stood behind Rambashi, transfixed with fear. For there on the path ahead of him was a tiger. It swung its tail lazily from side to side and raised its golden eyes at them, and then opened its mouth and roared so loudly that Lila thought the very earth was shaking. One of the smallest pirates put his hand in hers. So there they stood, and the tiger was just gathering its strength to spring when Lila suddenly remembered her self-igniting crackle dragons. She took her hand back from the small pirate, reached into her bag, and took out the 3 she brought with her. "Mind," she said to Rambashi, and pulling the string of the first one, she threw the firework in front of the tiger. The mighty beast had never been so surprised in its life. First one, then another, then yet another crackle dragon snapped and flashed and sparked and leapt at him, and that was too much. With a whimper, the tiger turned and fled. And you can see in the picture, I stand up, that the tiger has Lila, and the crackle dragons and the pirates are really surprised. The pirates cheered. "Magnificent," cried Rambashi. "Congratulations. I was about to stab him to death, of course, but never mind." Lila wondered how he would have done that with his silver paper-covered knife, but she didn't say anything. "And of course," Rambashi went on, "this changes everything. We can't keep you hostage if you just saved our lives. You'll have to be our guest instead. Stay with us overnight." We got no food," said someone. "What's she going to eat?" We'll send Chang out to catch some fish," said Rambashi cheerfully, shaking his head at the protests that arose. No, fish is good for you. Go on, Chang, don't just stand there." "I can't," said Chang. "Look." They looked back at the riverbank. The murderer was drifting away, with the painter drifting in the water. "Who tied it up?" said Rambashi. One of the pirates looked down and tried to rub a hole in the ground with his big toe. Said Rambashi. "Fine pirates you are. I hope you're ashamed. But never mind. I've got a better idea. Miss," he said to Lila, rubbing his hands. There was a bright gleam in his eye. Can I interest you in a little investment? Well, Lila said, I ought to be getting on, really. No, really, this is a much better idea than piracy, Rambashi said. It came to me in a flash, just as I saw the boat floating away. I can't be cross with those fellows. They're like children, really. Yes, all my best ideas come in a flash, and this one's a corker. It can't fail. Is there any food in it? Said a pirate sourly. My dear boy, it's built on food. Just wait till you hear. I say, miss, just a little money, the safest investment you'll ever make. But Lila had walked away, and she went along the path until she could hear his voice behind her. No, listen, boys, I know where we went wrong last time. I saw it in a flash, but this is an idea that'll suit your talents down to the ground. Look, let me draw you a picture. Lila would have liked to know what Rambashi's next plan was, but she was eager to hurry on. Mount Marapani was smoking and rumbling in the distance. She felt her heart lift when she saw it again, so powerful and dominating, and she thought, I belong to that mountain, and it belongs to me. And on she went, with no other thoughts in her mind but that and excitement putting a spring in her step. And I think we might meet Rambashi and his crew a little bit later on. Meanwhile, Shulak was getting ready to smuggle Hamlet, the elephant, out of his new home. The master had gone to bed early, groaning, but the slaves were still awake and Shulak had to distract them. Now listen, he said to them in the kitchen, you know what you've got to do. Can you please the white elephant, or else the king will be cross? They all nodded. Well, the elephant's a bit restless. He never sleeps well the first night in a new place, so we'll have to play a game of elephant's footsteps to cheer him up. You have to go and hide in the garden, and when you think you can hear him coming, turn around. He likes playing that. Go on, wait in the garden, and I'll tell him when you're ready. The slaves all streamed out the back door, and as soon as they were hiding in the garden with their eyes shut, Shulak unlocked the gate and led Hamlet out. So you can see here, they're sneaking past. Funny to think of an elephant being snuck past people. It's a good thing they put down carpet, I ordered, he whispered. You don't half make a row on the gravel. Can't we go past the zoo? Hamlet whispered. No, of course not. Never mind Frangipani. That's the elephant he quite likes. It's Lila we've got to think about. And stop breathing so heavily. They tiptoed out of the gate and found Lachlan waiting there with the tarpaulin, just as Shulak had asked for. What's this for? Lachlan whispered. For this, said Shulak, and he made Hamlet kneel down to have it laid over his back, so he doesn't show up much in the dark. Ugh, grumbled Hamlet. It's hot and scratchy, and it smells like a marquee. Couldn't you have found a nice blanket? I don't think you realise your own size, Shulak said. Do be careful, said Lachlan. I ought to come with you. It's not a safe journey at all. Oh, I should have told Lila everything from the start. I should have trusted her. What a foolish old man I am. Yes, so never mind, said Shulak. We'll find her. Come on, Hamlet. And they set off. Lachlan stood watching them for a minute until they disappeared in the dark streets. But someone was watching Lachlan. One of the slaves who'd come to play Elephant's Footsteps was hiding under a bush nearby, and as soon as he realised what he'd seen, he began to tremble. Helping the white elephant to escape was a terrible crime. There'd be a terrible punishment, and there might be a great reward for the person who pointed out the criminal. So when Lachlan began to trudge homewards, the slaves silently followed him to find out who he was and where he lived. Shulak and Hamlet walked all night, and when morning came, they slept in a little valley under some thick trees. They woke up in the afternoon, and while Hamlet browsed on the leaves, Shulak went to the nearest village to ask the way to the Emerald Lake. He came back with an armful of bananas and some news. Guess what, Hamlet? We're in luck. This is the night of the full moon. The water goddess comes out of the lake and grants people's wishes. Couldn't be better, my boy. Finish your leaves and let's be moving. They weren't the only people going to the Emerald Lake. The jungle paths were busy with families carrying picnic baskets, and even a troop of monkeys was heading in the same direction. Just before the sunset, Shulak and Hamlet saw a young man busily pinning up notices on the trees beside the path. Shulak was about to read one when the young man caught sight of him. Hey, I know you, he said. And him. We know lots of people, said Shulak. Is this the right way for Emerald Lake? Just along there. Here, can I? The young man looked a bit bashful. Shulak knew what he wanted. "Kneel down, Hamlet," he said. "Customer." Hamlet couldn't say anything with the young man there, but he gave Shulak a severe look as he knelt down. The young man dabbed something on Hamlet's side with a stick and some mud and gave Shulak a coin. If you remember, they used the side of the elephant to advertise things, as we can see in the picture. "Thanks," he said. "Wait till I tell my boss." And he ran off. Shulak read what he'd written. "Eat at Rambashi's Jungle Grill." So that's telling us what Rambashi's new plan is a jungle grill, somewhere to eat. Written on the side of the elephant. "Rambashi," Shulak said. "I've got an uncle, Rambashi. He used to be a chicken farmer." The notices on the trees were advertising the jungle grill as well. It was opening that very night, and there were meals at half price if you brought in a voucher for one of the notices. "It'll be nice to see Uncle Rambashi again," Shulak said. "Come on, it'll be dark in a minute." They hurried on. Soon they came out on the shores of the Emerald Lake. Under the trees at the edge of the water, there stood some houses on stilts, with cooking fires and coloured lanterns. And as the tropical darkness covered the sky in less than 5 minutes, Shulak and Hamlet entered the village. Naturally, a white elephant with an advertisement written on him caused a sensation, and soon Shulak and Hamlet were being followed by a crowd of excited children and some older people with nothing else to do. Even the troupe of dancers getting into their costumes for the ceremony couldn't resist, and the dancing mistress had to run after them with a mouthful of safety pins to pull them back and scold them. "Which way to Rambashi's Jungle Grill?" Shulak asked, and someone pointed along the shore to where a wooden building stood on stilts over the water. There was a terrace with coloured flags and tables with checkered tablecloths and lamps made out of wine bottles, and a cloud of smoke was coming from the kitchen with the sounds of sizzling and bubbling and the smell of grilling meat and fish and spices. Just in time, Hamlet. What do you think of that? And that's Uncle Rambashi," said Shulak. Rambashi, wearing a white apron over his tartan sarong, was ushering some customers onto the terrace when he saw Shulak. "Shulak, my boy! How delightful to see you. And your friend? Your pet? This is excellent mobile advertising billboard. Come in, dear boy. Voucher? Oh, don't bother with that. Free food for everyone, in honour of the ceremony of the full moon." "Of course I'll lose money on it, but we'll soon make up for it. Wonderful publicity." "Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. Free meals tonight." "What about us?" said a waiter. "When do we get our supper?" "Customers first," said Rambashi. "You and the boys can have as much as you like later on." "I thought you were in the chicken business," said Shulak, tucking into a big plate of prawns and rice in satay sauce. "Yeah, we had to give that up. I felt sorry for the hens, Shulak, so we took up the transport business for a while. River taxi, you know, with some freelance work on the side." I think he's talking about kidnapping there. "But then came the opportunity to invest in the restaurant trade, where my talents truly lie, Shulak." "Yes, madam, our grilled lake trout is exquisite tonight. Might I suggest some saffron rice to accompany it, and a flask of jasmine wine? Yes, all free, no charge. Compliments of the house." The Jungle Grill was certainly doing good business, or would have been if Rambashi had been charging for it. "I hope he knows what he's doing, Hamlet," Shulak said as the elephant browsed quietly on the banyan tree that overspread the terrace. "He reckons it'll be such good publicity that they'll come back when he starts charging." "I'm not so sure. Still, food's good. Smoky but tasty." Rambashi's cook was having trouble with the grill, which he kept having to throw water over when it got too hot. Clouds of smoke and steam kept billowing out, and the waiters rushed to and fro with full plates and dirty plates, and flasks of wine and menus and coconuts full of ice cream. Meanwhile, the village elders were preparing the lakeshore for the full moon ceremony. Shulak and Hamlet, full of supper, wandered along to have a look. The sand was swept and smoothed, lanterns were hung in the trees, and blossoms of all colours were scattered on the water. The path from the temple to the lake was crowded, several deep on either side, and Shulak had to climb on Hamlet's back in order to see. Then the ceremony began. A great drum sounded 3 times, and an orchestra began to play. Gongs and xylophones and drums and cymbals and flutes. A line of dancers came out of the temple and swayed down the path towards the lake, their fingernails snapping and flicking like fireflies, and their golden skirts shimmering in the lantern light. The head man of the village struck a light and lit a scented candle in a paper boat, which he floated out onto the lake. The incense made the air sweet and rich. Very soon, other paper boats were floating out to join it, and then a little child pointed at the tree tops on the far side of the dark lake and said, "Moon." The full moon was rising, and it rose. The music rose too. The gongs and the xylophones and the cymbals all summoning the goddess from the lake. And then there she was. Though no one had seen her arrive, it was as if she'd come when they were looking away. And when they looked back, they saw her. Though no one had really looked away, she was floating to the shore on a raft of water lilies, a beautiful lady in a robe the colour of the moon, with silver rings and amulets and a necklace of jasmine flowers. And you can see her here. One after another, the villagers bowed to her and asked her for help. This woman for a sick child, that man for a good harvest, these lovers for a blessing on their marriage. The goddess rebuked some for asking for too much, though she never refused anyone in need. When they had all finished, and the goddess was about to depart, Shulak gathered his wits and shook his head, because he was a little dazed by her beauty. And he thrust his way to the water's edge and knelt down. "Goddess," he said, "please hear me too." But before the goddess could answer, Hans took him roughly and hauled him away. "What are you doing, stranger?" "Away with him, defiling the lake." "Who is he? Who gave him permission?" "Stone him! Turn him out!" Shulak struggled. He could see Hamlet raising his trunk and shifting his feet, and he knew the elephant was getting angry. "No," he cried. "Listen, I've got a special request. Just let me ask the goddess." The high priest looked down, frowning. His face was shadowed and stern. "How dare you come to this sacred place," he said. "The goddess of the lake is not to be disturbed by your frivolous requests. Take him away." "No, she shall not hear you. Be thankful we let you go with your life. Take him to the village boundary, and if he comes back, kill him." Whoa. So that's the end of chapter 3. So both our characters are on quite complicated and dangerous missions at the moment. Hopefully we'll see them come back together soon. We're about halfway through the book. So I'll come back tomorrow and read chapter 4 to you.